Is there any biblical mandate that directs us to embrace the lesser of two evils? Well, if there is, I don't know where it is. But on the other hand, I can think of numerous examples, some from the scripture and some from military history, that seem to indicate that we are not to act out of fear and accept the lesser of two evils. Instead, we are to boldly act in faith. Now, this is the second in a four-part series. We're going to take a look historically at some situations that required sacrificial decisions to be made for the good of a long-term, better future. Not fables, not legends, not parables or illustrations. These are well-documented historical facts that are not in dispute. Two are from the Bible, and two are from military history. Now, for today's episode, before we get started, let me give you some personal background. It was the summer before my senior year in high school. In fact, it was August 15th, the dreaded day that football practice always began throughout the state of Florida. Now, each player needs two pairs of cleats, one for practice and one for games. Now, for my game cleats, I chose Spot Built. They were known for their lightweight, and they were kind of high fashion. By the way, white cleats were not yet really in fashion at that point. By an odd twist of fate, Spot Built brand was hatched by O.J. Simpson. But for practice, I needed something different. I needed durability, not fashion. So, the cleats had to last all year. And so I chose a brand called Phidippides. They certainly were no fashion statement, but they were known for their rugged durability. So for those of us who had a pair of Phidippides cleats, we were often asked how to pronounce it and what the heck is Phidippides. Well, here's what I found out from my unintended history lesson. The Spartan 300. The conquest of Greece was underway. The invading army of Xerxes was on the march, and his conquest of Greece would require him to approach by way of a narrow passage. Military parlance would call that a choke point. So a small band of Spartans organized to stand in that gap. Now, their intent was not to defeat the enemy and send them home in retreat. They knew that wasn't possible. What they were doing is trying to organize an army to slow them down long enough to organize an effective resistance to protect their homeland. They knew that by slowing Xerxes down, that would supply the needed time. They also knew they would all die. Now, the Spartans fought valiantly. At the end of the first day of battle, some 6,400 Persian soldiers lay dead on the battlefield at a cost of a mere 192 Spartans. One of the surviving soldiers, Phidippides, was dispatched as a courier to send the news of the battle, as well as critical intelligence regarding enemy numbers, strength, tactics, and weaponry, to the nearest town, so that the opposition could be organized from there. Now, Phidippides was chosen because he was an athlete, an Olympian, you might say. He had competed in numerous long-distance running events and won them. He arrived in the nearest town, where he soon died of exhaustion. But before his death, he was able to supply them with the critical intelligence from the battlefield. Resistance was organized, and Xerxes was ultimately defeated. The distance of Phidippides' run was 26.2 miles. The city he ran to was Marathon. Today, we continue to honor one of the valiant Spartan 300. A marathon run is 26.2 miles for a reason. Sometimes there are no good choices. The Spartan 300 chose to die so as to better position themselves, or rather position their team, their comrades in arms, for future battles that could be won. They did not choose defeat. They embraced it as an opportunity. They did not choose surrender. They did not defect to Xerxes, who, by the way, had assimilated numerous former enemy armies and treated them rather well. After all, tyrants must treat their armies well. They did not call for more troops or reinforcements. They chose to fight valiantly, to certain defeat, and in fact death, to preserve and increase the strength of their comrades who would go on to fight another day. For the Spartan 300, there were no good choices, but they chose faith over fear. When faced with a decision that offers a choice between the lesser of two evils, is your decision going to be based on faith or on fear? The Bible has some words to say about that in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. Here's what it says. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. We'll delve into that more when we conclude this 4-part series. Well, that's what I think. What are your thoughts? I'm really interested. Would you mind leaving your comments below? Or maybe you could hit me up on Twitter. I am at DataGenesis. You can also find the text version of this video on my blog page, and the address you will find above. And you can also subscribe to this YouTube channel. I hope you'll stay tuned as we continue this 4-part series on the lesser of two evils.